Hey, this is Steve Assault Magazine. Thanks for coming back. I've been waiting to do this. Waiting's not quite the right word. Perfectionism breeds procrastination. But I've been wanting to get this video done for years, really. I mean, shout out to my cousin Greg Bolster. Probably had the first real system that I heard, that I actually physically heard, from what I can remember. But I was really inspired to have like a real room, you know, by somebody who lived just down the street when I was a teenager. And his front room, and he just had all this, seemed like everything was silver and white in this room, and it was probably about the same size as this room, but where a lot of people would have a couch and, you know, table on the floor, and, you know, a greeting room or dining room or something, you know, in those houses. He had a great system with all this music filed, and it was just, I wish I knew what it was. Is, you know, think Bang & Olufsen kind of a look, you know, maybe, but you know, something to that degree. But I've been working on this room for about 5 years. Had to completely gut the room, and so it afforded me the opportunity to get it just how I wanted it, sound-wise. But the last year or so, I've been looking for a user manual for this amp, to figure out exactly how to use the EQ. It's kind of complex, and I never really looked at it much. And my brother came over a couple months ago, and we were looking it over, and we kind of figured out maybe a way to show how to, you know, how it works. But I'm gonna have to work on that. I'm gonna have to do a separate video on that later, because I haven't been able to find any information on that, strangely enough. But anyway, since this is kind of such a big deal to me, for this week's drink, and in light of the champagne dials we have on here, I thought we'd really go all out and go fancy with some Martinelli's Gold Medal Sparkling Cider. I love this stuff, and it's been chilling in my refrigerator for months. Waiting for, is this gonna screw off or not? Fortunately, I've got my Greaserama cap opener nearby, which Greaserama 25 is going to be in close to me this year. And I'm using my Chevy 2, speaking of, my Chevy 2 glass. Don't know how well you can see that. I don't know. It's gold. Golden. Awesome. You know, it's got, of course, that apple fragrance, and then when it hits your tongue, whoo, great. and you won't act stupid later, right? Good stuff. Now, this video's book, special occasion, deserves a special book. It's called Becoming a Hope Dealer, a personal journey from frustration to fulfillment. As you might guess, it's from my son, David William Park. William named after my dad. And this is a great book. It's an easy read. I read it again the night before last. And he tells some personal stories in each chapter, calls me out. No, this is a great book, basically about finding mentors in your life, how he found mentors in his life to help him succeed. And so there's some tips in here for you. This is not your typical success book, which there's many great ones out there. But of course, some of that is built on the thinking and with, you know, thoughts of how to succeed in life. And then one of the keys to that is having a mentor, finding a mentor in your life. One clue, one of the best clues is to find someone who is where you want to be and pursue that person. That's one of the main keys. I'll tell you, there's other reasons to read this book, but that's a big key for anybody, is if you want to succeed, find somebody who succeeded and try to get with them, try to find out what they did to succeed. One of the great things about the world, about America, about the way God made things to be, we can make something ourselves. We can make things better with just a little work and you know, desire. So anyway, you can go to davidandsamanthapark.com, or you should be able to find this on Amazon, I believe. I'll put a link below and get you a copy of this. yourlegacybook.com is actually, I believe that's my uncle's, his uncle's company. Anyway, Becoming a Hope Dealer. See what that's about. So anyway, I've been kind of anxious to show that book too. But a lot of people will say to build your room around your speakers. And one reason for that is because your speaker ohms, you know, 4 ohms, 8 ohms, 1 ohm, 6 ohms, whatever, most are 8 ohms, is going to affect, you know, what amp you're going to need. But there's not a whole lot of variance with that, but that may be key. But what really, to me, one of the main things is speakers can sound so different. And there's like earbuds. You can't find hardly bad earbuds in a dollar store anymore. The technology has gotten so good. So there's a myriad of great speakers out there, but there are a lot of differences in how they sound. And my favorite place to tell people to start is with a cheap $45 Yamaha AV receiver and some local made clips, the hardwood body clips from probably the 90s or something. Those are super high quality speakers that are made in America, made in Arkansas, and those are going to sound great. Everybody says horns are harsh or whatever. I don't know. It just is a good, powerful system. You're going to hear a lot of the music. You're going to hear, you know, all the music to me. But anyway, so yeah, you know, just these are super neutral, and so they sound awesome. But I built this whole room around this turntable, this grinding wheel. In '83, I came across this album by Peter Beveridge, and I saw this and I thought, if that is a real, I was like, what the heck? If that is actually real, you know, it's got some airbrush on here, you know, and so I didn't know if this is real. It looks like a photograph, but I'd never seen anything close to something like this. And I thought, if that is a real turntable, that's going to be my turntable. And I didn't find out till like that was like in '83, I think, when that album came out. And I probably got that from the Sonderman Christian bookstore where Mom worked. But ever since then, until about 2017, I was listening to podcasts, and somebody was listing about 4, you know, high-end turntables, probably classic turntables. And so I checked them out. Sure enough, Oracle Delphi, and was one of those 4 to check out. Sure enough, and then I saw so many online. I'm like, how have I never seen this? I've never heard of this. So then the journey started to find one, and Joshua Wallfish in New Jersey from High End Audio. He specializes in Oracle and I believe Thorns, and had one listed on one of the sites online, and had him build it for me. And so that took a few months. But Oracle started in, let's see, the 70s, 76 maybe, I think. Can't remember. But it's a company in Sherbrooke, Quebec, Canada. So it's basically French. And I've got 3 other videos I've done on this turntable already. Salt TV 50, 60, and 70. Had to have them rebuild the motor, I believe, and so there's videos of me putting it together, that kind of stuff. But this is based on a 3-tower system, spring system, where they're tunable towers, and it's resting on the it's hanging from the towers instead of resting on the towers. It's hanging from them, and so everything moves together. Everything important moves together. So when you're walking around the floor, which I've got wood floors, but it's pretty solid house. But any, you know, especially wood floor, you know, and this is pretty stout too. But it all moves together. You know, if I bump it or something, it all moves together. You know, put a record on there, and it always, you know, it's supposed to bounce about 3 to 5 times, something. And but we put the tone arm on there, and it's all moving together. So, and it's tunable. It's machined magnesium aluminum, which I love that space age look. You know, that's what I liked about it. You know, that futuristic look. Now the table on the album cover, more than likely, since it would have been brand new, probably had an Oracle cartridge, but I didn't see the need to spend the $600 or more, or whatever that was on here. I'm kind of assuming that that's the card it would have had, and that would have been nice, but I didn't feel the need to have that card. It wasn't the important part to me. You know, the main thing was just the table itself. But what was cool is originally had a Grace G747 cartridge on there, which would have been period correct alternative for the 80s, early 80s. But he had put a Grado Prestige Black on there. And I thought, well, that's cool, because the first cartridge replacement I ever bought was from Grado. And I always loved my Grado headphones, and I thought, well, that'd be cool. But when I put that on my Kenwood way back in the 80s, probably 88 or something like that, I always thought it kind of had a warm sound, which was fine. But when I got this and played it on here, it didn't just sound warm, it just didn't have any dynamics. You know, I wanted some sparkle and low, you know, some variance, but it was just kind of real flat. And so he said he had a Shure V15 Type 4 cartridge, and I thought, that's what I need. That's a classic cartridge. That's pretty sought after, and it's in pretty much like new condition. Of course, Shure stopped making cartridges and stuff years ago, but I believe it's a Japanese company, JICO, makes a replacement for a lot of cartridges. They mainly cater to the wiki, you know, the mix masters out there. But this VN45HE SASB cartridge is a replacement for this Shure, and it sounds good. It's got that I was gonna say smile EQ, but it just it brings it all. You know, maybe there's probably better, I'm sure there's better cartridges and styluses out there, whatever. But this has what I like a bright. Bright kind of means something different to a lot of people. It means harsh to some people, but I do. I like the smile EQ. I like to hear the highs and the lows, and basically all of these. All of this gear is kind of known as warm gear or whatever. So it's got that in spades. It's got the warmth, that everybody's looking for, whatever, by nature anyway. So super happy to get that. I mean, just even this cartridge, is awesome. It's got chrome sides on it, and it just little details like that. In fact, the newest parts of the system are the stylus, JICO stylus on the one end, and the speakers on the other end, and then the cables in between. Whatever. I like classic stuff anyway, old stuff. Speaking of Chevy 2 on here. In 1946, the SME company began making aeronautical instruments. And in 76 through about 86, SME company came out with this award-winning yet apparently controversial tone arm because of its high compliance and low mass. Is why it would have been controversial or whatever. And so this is kind of a classic tone arm, but it's what was on the turntable on the album cover, and that's what I wanted, and so that's what I had him put on there. It's a titanium armband and arm tube, and then the body is carbon fiber, and it's kind of complex. It's got a lot of adjustability, and of course, they simplified it by a great deal since then. Like the Series 5 is a lot different. But it came with, he had a aluminum arm base on here, but on the album cover it has the acrylic. You can't really tell because it's kind of clear acrylic. It's kind of smoky acrylic, but you can tell this is a smoky acrylic base, and the arm base was also that same material, and so I had him make the arm base acrylic for me there. Now, one of the key features is this screw down, and it does make a difference with sound, and it helps solidify the sound. Does give you a little bit more bass, a little bit. It's got an adapter here for thinner records, removable adapter here, and a tunable mat, rubber mat here, which what does it call it? It's too dark for me to read it. I can't remember. But I haven't tried to tune it. You can turn the mat and tune it. I don't know. I haven't checked into that yet. But 33, 45 speed. And I found a nice lamp. This is obviously not part of the turntable. I wanted something super slim that kind of was the same aesthetic. I wanted something even smaller than that to get out of the way, but that's great. It's it's got different tones and whatnot. But yeah, I finally got my dream turntable basically, and then I had to find what amp I wanted to go with that. And I had a lot of choices, but I wanted something from the day. I thought, I wanted to know what was interested in what someone would have been using an Oracle turntable with. Being for the time a high-end turntable, I wanted something high-end, but I didn't want to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on an amp. Being a classic amp, I didn't feel like I needed to get the best of the best of the best or anything. And so even though this wasn't super cheap, it wasn't expensive at all, really, in the grand scheme of things. But you know, I was looking at Conrad Johnson, which is real nice aesthetically. Acoustic Research, you know, of course, Macintosh. You know, I like Macintosh, but it's just a little too much, you know. This is the star of the show. So Luxman to me is like, it's kind of like when you're, to me it's like when you're jumping out of the mid-range. You jump out of the Yamaha and into something a little, the next step, when you're stepping just outside of the mid-fi, and you know, really good mid-fi, and you just begin to step into the high-end stuff. And in reality, it's probably made as well as a lot of other things, like, you know, maybe Yamaha or something, but Luxman has been around for, as of this year, 100 years. It's a Japanese company, started in 1925 to make high-end audio with a purely natural sound. The artistry of design and sound. And that's what you get with this, just a pure sound. It's meant to not be colored, you know. This is a Luxman L85V amp. It's a 80 watt amp, solid state, class AB, I believe. They made this from 75 to 77, and so it's 50th anniversary for this amp. It's got a nice classic design with this aluminum face, and I just love the aluminum. There's this separated fascia from the Rio rosewood cabinet. The champagne dials on here are awesome. They, you know, this is hard metal, heavy metal. The volume dial has a nice smooth click as you go up. Like I said, there's a lot of EQ you can do on here. It's got a loudness which I like, but I don't use, because I have it kind of set somewhat to a smile, you know, maxed out in the highs and lows. It's got 2 tape on here. There's an auxiliary. I plugged my iPad into that. I wire it in. No Bluetooth around here. But I just love the Machine L logo on here. The embossed name on here. It's a beautiful piece of gear, as they say. And the it would have been I think about 750 new, which is about 4,500 nowadays money. And the tuner, likewise, probably about 650 new. It's just a tuner. You know, in 75. It's very simple yet effective. And the nice amber glow is kind of a little more realistic, for lack of a better term, than the meters, you know. It a little more real world functionality. Most people are more likely to use a tuner than meters, you know. Although meters would have been, I might have preferred having an amp of meters, whatever, having a preamp and an amp of meters, but this is what this had at the time, and it's beautiful. It's champagne look in there. The once again, the dial on here is super smooth and quiet between stations. As you can't tell, I got something different going on. Yeah, see how quiet it is. Nice heavy dial. Quiet between the stations, and it has a high blend over here that's meant to kind of merge the stereo signal, the treble zone, to help reduce the stereo noise, the radio noise. But anyway, I don't, you know, like a lot of people, I don't use the tuner a whole lot, but I like to have it on for the looks, you know. But it's just been super great. It's been a great match to the turntable. I had to have it opened up. I had a local shop. I don't remember what I had him do. I meant to look to see what he did, but you know, channel out, or I don't remember what I had him do. It's been a few years, and you know, something this old is one of the things. If you want to buy something from the 70s, there's a chance that it's going to have noise in your dials, you know, some crackling or whatever, which Deoxit, you know, can help with, and just using it, just like anything else, use it or lose it, you know. So anyway, the speakers. All right, I do have a couple of subs in the corners in here, some small ones. It's REL Q201E from the early 2000s. Handmade in Great Britain. They've got 200 MOSFET amp, so you got 17 hertz to 120 hertz. The 10-inch driver on this thing, on these things, the surround on here, 1x250 millimeter extra long throw surround on there is ridiculous. It's just absolutely crazy. But you know, it's to enhance the audible range. You know, you do experience them I think whether you're hearing them or not, whatever you want to say, you're hearing them, you're experiencing them nevertheless. They come in handy, for that music that really drops down there. But these, you don't really miss having a sub with these. They drop down, they do great. These are the Sonus Faber Olympica 2. Handcrafted sound. Sonus Faber stands for handcrafted sound. That's their theme or whatever. They began creating their musical instruments in 1983, around the time my hi-fi journey really was beginning to ramp up. They say their goal for musical reproduction is a natural sound, which means transparency, speed, and articulation. And that's what you get with these carefully handmade speakers from Vicenza, Italy. These are 2013. I bought them in OS, new old stock. So my listening periods were pretty sparse in between. So I don't know anything about breaking them in or whatever, but they just sound great. They sound great out of the box. They have the Olympica 1, and that's a stand mount. And this is the Olympica 2, which adds a sub. The 3 adds another sub, and the 5 adds yet another sub. And yeah, I would like to hear those, but it would be interesting to see how much farther deep they go. This room doesn't need anything different than these speakers. If you've got a larger room, these would be great. The 3s and the 5s would be great for larger rooms, 20 by whatever. This room is probably 12 by 12, something like that. And it gives you just that extra more that you'd want beyond having a stand mount. Which those would look great in here. These are really the perfect size speakers for this room to me, because they don't feel like they're too small, which stand mounts can look great because it's like that thing over there looks busy, but stand mount always looks more substantial. But this isn't a giant speaker, and it's not too big and it's not too small for this room. They need a 50 to 300 watt system, and so this is pretty much perfect for this room. They're 88 efficiency. Their bandwidth is 40 to 30K. And so they sound great. They work great in here. This was the first year of the Olympica. They have the new Olympica Nova, which came in 2016, I think, maybe later than that, 17. And there's some great things about that, a few little improvements or whatever. But the only thing I don't care about the main thing I don't care about the Novas, which you would think I would want to get the Novas, is they bring the wood all the way around, and it's maybe a little more contemporary, and they look nice, but I much prefer this leather front, face on these. This is one of their best-selling speakers, because this is this is where this is kind of the beginning of where you're getting a super nice high-end speaker without it being the $100,000 speakers, the ones that are maybe necessary, maybe not. But it's got a solid maple top and bottom, which is super nice. It's got a asymmetrical lyre shape that adds rigidity and quells the internal standing waves. It also is kind of like a boat shape, but it's asymmetrical to, like I said, to quell the standing waves and stuff internally. Now, originally, I thought, they may look like stacked blocks of walnut, but it's actually far more complex than that. It's 8 layers of thin cut, pressed, sealed, and formed simultaneously for greater consistency. And this constrained layer dampening actually creates greater rigidity along with the internal bracing, resulting in lower resonance. You might think that solid maple, that'd be great, but there's so much variance if you think about it. In reality, in a tree trunk, in solid pieces of wood, it's never really consistent, and so it could be actually more porous than you might want it to be. They make some awesome solid wood speakers, but they're not this thick, or this thick. But I just love this elegant walnut with the white maple lines in between. Now, this reminded me that just like in a person's inner character reflecting on the outside, a speaker's inner structure you don't see affects the quality of the sound that comes out that you experience. Cutting down on that resonance, creates a silence. Silence is the canvas on which the music is painted, right? So their goal was to reduce all the unwanted resonance in here, and it's a hefty, 35 pounds is what it needs for these drivers, which the woofer is a 7-inch layers of high-tech foam and cellulose pulp. And by the way, I'll take off this grill, in essence, that is, multiple function here. It gives it a musical instrument effect with strings. It gives a hint of protection for the drivers, you know, kind of out of sight, out of mind. It just a little bit of protection from curious hands, you know, so to speak. But it also allows you to see the speakers to some extent. Part of which is the voice of Sonus Faber. You've got a 1-inch damped apex silk dome tweeter. This bow and arrow apex design helps the speaker reach the higher frequencies and yet stay in phase, because they can go out of phase at higher frequencies. And so it's a patented design. Voice, mid-range 5.9 cellulose pulp and Copac tropical plant materials. It's got an aluminum phase plug, which I like. This is the original, and I really have to say I really like the one they replaced the next year. They replaced it with an SF logo went in there, and I really like that idea. But that's the voice of Sonus Faber. La carta cinta, paper sings. Thus the paper use, the paper cones. The leather face, I love. Leather on top, embossed with the Sonus Faber, and a bit of aluminum trim on there. Let's see, they're 4 ohm, like I said, but they're designed to work with most amplifiers. Like I said, I love this. I think it's on this side. It's on this side. Anyway, I love this wood finish, super smooth. You should see the how they craft these things. I want to show you this. On the back, there's a paralaminar ultraflex stealth flow port. It's a side-firing chamber that runs the length of the cabinet, covered by an elegant perforated chromed aluminum bar. Just, you're not even going to see that usually, and yet it's so classy looking. And you don't see the binding post yet. They put these flanged SF Sonus Faber stamped binding posts that help make it easier to turn. But these ended up being, to me, the perfect choice for this system, and I just love coming in here and seeing them and hearing them. It's just such a great experience. And lastly, I'll talk about cables. And if you want to argue about cables, I'm sure Guido over at Dialogue and Taryn Sharma, the British audiophile, would love to argue with you about cables. I'll put links below for those guys. Now, I'm not a big cable person or whatever. I'm not going to go, crazy talking about cables. I'll tell you this, if you want to know, it's definitely something you've just got to try, and if you don't think it makes any difference for your system, if you don't think you're hearing anything different, when you're actually trying to, make an effort, meaning that, for instance, on one of my other systems, I went from just the tiniest cord, lamp cord, I guess you call it, or whatever, the tiniest speaker cable that is kind of common, from that tiny cable to I think it was 13, and the guy thought I was crazy. It might have been 10. I think it was 13, but I don't. Quite a bit thicker, from just the hardware store. I went and got some lamp cord from the hardware store. That was a much thicker gauge, and yeah, I heard a difference. You can hear more sound, better sound, bigger bass, whatever you want to say. I got more from my speakers using a good length of maybe 15 to 20 feet or something, or less. So that's just cheap lamp cord, and for most people, if not everybody, I don't know. I don't have a giant system, and I haven't tried all of that. Anyway, you just have to try it and see. To me, this was just a fun part of building my system. So I got cables, I can see them, even though I like to have them somewhat hidden. I don't need them sticking out everywhere like a Mac has cables coming out of the side or whatever, which is fine. But anyway, I had fun just trying to find not ridiculously expensive cables, unnecessarily probably expensive cables, but not ridiculously, just somewhat common cables. So what I ended up getting for this system, my speakers are Kimber, they're 8PR, I believe it's like basically an 11 gauge. They're 9 foot, 3 meter, whatever, and they're S-band termination, which is more bananas, or more secure than spades. Spades, if you're moving anything at all, which your speakers do move, all speakers are going to have some kind of resonance, or just your house in general. If you move something, somebody could step on something, you vacuum the floor, your cable may move. There's a good likelihood that your cable is going to move to some extent, and it doesn't take much to move a cable and turn that binding post to where it loosens your spade, and you don't want that. Bad things can happen. I was fortunate enough to get the black brown, which I felt went better in this room. Before they changed things up, kind of improved the line for people in a way, cost-wise and quality for the average person, whatever, to the red, black. Those look cool too. maybe I'll get someday on another system or something. But so anyway, I got the Kimber Kable 8PR. My interconnects I got from, I really did a lot of research on those, and there's some that are really fancy ones that I wanted, but I don't remember what the deal with those. It's super cool sleeves on these ones. I think it was just that they were just so ridiculously expensive as unnecessary. But Maze Audio, homemade, great quality. Ones I got are 5N Purity, 22 gauge, virgin oxygen free, copper, and they're encased in a nice gold black Tech Flex jacketing, which I think really looks nice, and it feels good to have something other than just a black and red thin, string going from your tuner to your amp or whatever. I did have the PB&J originally on my turntable from Kimber, but one of the ends was super tight, and yet I would get some humming, and so I don't know what was going on with that. I ended up putting it on a different system, and it's fine up there. But I really wanted to use these on this turntable anyway, since I can see them every time I go to the turntable. I see those nice cables back there, and it just feels cool. Feels good to have cool cables, Also bought the Maze Audio jumpers for the speakers, which are spades. I don't know if they had spade on one end and banana on the other. I don't remember. I don't know if they offered those, but anyway, that's just what you have to do, unless you just want to use the, most people don't use the best material for some reason for their connectors on the back, their jumpers on the back. But like I said, for my iPad, which I use every once in a while, I got this 20-foot, something like that, cable from Monoprice, because it's nice and thick, for my iPad. And every once in a while I use that. Thought about doing Bluetooth so it's more flexible, and that would probably be fine, but I don't know, I just like the idea of having a wired sound. But Monoprice is a pretty good place to get stuff. They've got some good quality cords. I've got a few other cords from them too. But this being an amp from the 70s, it's got clip spring clips, and so how do I get the bananas to? It's not going to fit in a spring clip. So I looked around, and you can buy some from online, Amazon, wherever. But I wanted some good ones, and Russ Andrews puts out a nice Audiophile kind of catalog magazine, little zine, and he uses Kimber Kable for their products. You can get this. I was going to order a strip, power strip from them, but it's only English. So especially, you might look up Russ Andrews, and it's an interesting catalog. magazine. So, you know, that puts articles, but it's primarily going to be beneficial to someone in European places who've got European outlets and that kind of stuff. But I got a bananas to spring clip adapter from them, and like I said, they use Kimber Kable for that, for what that's worth, this much of, you know, cable. But it's, you know, it's high quality. They make high quality audio accessories, so you might check into them if you're interested, especially, like I said, if you're from England, you know. And to show these, this is the owner's manual for the Sonus, the Olympic 2s, specs and whatnot. Very cool, very cool. I haven't opened this since I got the speakers. New classic emotion. This is crazy, just to show you. Craftsmanship of Sonus Faber. Very cool, very, very, very cool. Talks about, it's very interesting, their ideal, their aesthetic, and what that has to do with the sound and everything. Sonus Faber. Most importantly, speaking of snake oil, I'm not interested in snake oil. You can talk, like I said, you can talk to everyone else about your speaker cables and stuff. I mean, you can talk to me about what you got and what you like. It's fine. I just don't want to argue with you about it. I'm not the one to argue about it with. Most important part of my system is my cable risers. None of that snake oil. I've got lizard oil for my cable risers. Godzilla, nothing works like a Godzilla cable riser, except maybe a Jack. Is it Jack or a Jacques? How many of you out there, most of us are my age, right, know what Jacques are? But I thought, what would be a lot of those are just silly, they're just plain. It's like, okay, the dude believes in cable risers and he has some and they're special made or whatever, but they just look like, yeah, there's a little tool on the floor, you know. I wanted something cool, you know, something interesting. So I thought a lot of different things came, but the main thing I wanted some Jacques for my cable risers. And I thought, you know, just like this speaker cable, I think they make a difference. They can make a difference. But I was just kind of going all out. I'm having fun here with my system, and I'd be curious to know what interesting thing you've done to make your system fun, to make it work, to make it functional, to make it fun. What kind of cable risers do you use for whether they work or not? You know, it makes it easier to sweep under your cables. Makes it harder for the mice to chew on them, or you know, I don't know, whatever. I'm having a lot of fun with my system, and so Hope you are too. All right, so that's my system. Thanks for hanging out with me today. In the comments below, put a link to your video of your system. Lots of people love to see other people's systems. I always find it interesting as to what people like to listen to, what kind of gear they like and why, and that kind of thing. That's always interesting. Hopefully I can get this room done real soon and show you the whole setup in here. It's really come together really quite slowly, but the system itself didn't take too long to, in the grand scheme of things, you know, a year or whatever. It basically came together real well, and even though I'm interested in maybe looking at a tube amp or something, I've really been enjoying this system. It sounds great. I wish I had more time to listen to it more often. This is a great great room to just sit and read and listen to music. And so anyway, this is Steve, Salt Magazine. Like I said, thanks for hanging out with me. Now, go out there and use what God blessed you with to do something cool for someone else. Right on. Right on.